I mean, the key is that this gives you freedom.
Exactly.
No, you have much
it's freedom like you have never felt before. A lot of times also people might get pregnant and they might feel like, I'm not free. I can't drink, I can't smoke, I can't drink coffee, I can't do these things, I can't, go on roller coasters, and I feel like I'm constricted by this pregnancy, where I felt like that for 1 second. As a matter of fact, I feel like this baby is helping me feel like I'm using steroids or something, and making me feel really, really good. It's sort of something that helps you not feel confined by the phase that you're in. And I think this method essentially teaches you how to have control of yourself.
Welcome to this new episode of the Learn Buteyko podcast. Today we meet again with Renate, who is now 28 weeks pregnant, and I really hope you'll sit with us through the whole interview and listen to how great she's doing with her pregnancy, her level of confidence, her level of well-being, the power of her choice as to when and at what level of awareness she has chosen to become pregnant, and also how her body follows the process at 40 years old. The Buteyko Method brings longevity to every process of your physiology, and I think Renate's testimonial proves its power in this regard. She's having, I dare to say, a much better pregnancy at 40 than most women will have today at a much younger age. When the student is ready, the master appears, and she found the Buteyko Method. I hope you will enjoy this fascinating and empowering testimonial, again from a Buteyko practitioner, Renate du Plessis.
Hey!
Hello. Hi, Renate.
Good evening on your end.
Yes. How are you doing?
I'm very good. I'm very, very good. I feel sort of like even better than I did, I would say 10 weeks ago.
Oh, wow, really? Okay.
Yeah, it's really bizarre. I would take a nap like maybe 5 times a week, but I haven't taken a nap in 3 weeks.
Really? Okay.
Yes,
Wow.
sleep is good. Sleep is very good. Um, I do a very small practice. So my practice is like 3 pauses in the morning, and that's it now. And so today I'm at 28 weeks in 1 day. And the midwife came to visit yesterday. We had the 28 weeks in America. They do the glucose tolerance test to see if you can tolerate glucose, and they give you 50 grams of carbs.
Yeah.
And see how your body tolerates that within an hour. And it was totally fine how my body tolerated that. I don't eat a lot of carbs anyway, but my body was fine with that amount of carbohydrates, which is like 2 thick slices of bread, really. It's not all that much, but anyway.
Okay.
And let's see. As far as sleeping is concerned, I normally, when I started Buteyko, I started sleeping in sort of like a semi-reclined, like positioning, sitting kind of like that. And I really have gotten accustomed to that. And every now and then again, I'll turn on my side a little bit, and I would turn on my left side a lot of times. And when I got slightly bigger in my body, my ribs on the right side, right where my liver, my gallbladder sits, like it did not like that. So I'm sitting even more in an upright position. I'm literally sleeping like this.
Oh, really? Wow.
The pillows, and it's by far I can sleep 6 hours in a row without waking, without moving, without having to do anything. Perfectly just sitting like that. And I have no pain when I wake up either. So I don't have uncomfortableness like I gotta lie like this, or I gotta switch, or I gotta do all these different things. So I think the recommendation of sleeping seated, it's not just for asthmatics or people with COPD or people who need to sleep in a recliner. I think it's like for anybody really, that it's by far the most quality sleep I get, actually, to sleep like that.
Yes. Yes. I mean, I mean, Buteyko is all about the breathing, yeah, but it's those things that you do so yeah that your breathing doesn't
Your breathing
suffer.
is better, right? Exactly.
Yeah, I never tried like completely upright.
Well, I mean, I would normally be at like 110-degree angle,
Yeah,
and so, but I have like shifted it more upright, so it's probably like maybe 100 degrees, not 90. It's not like I'm
right.
sitting at 90 degrees, but
Sure,
it's
no, I mean 90
definitely,
would be.
it's
You
pretty,
can.
it's pretty upright. I have a special pillow to make sure that my head doesn't like do weird stuff, but it
Yes.
holds my head in place at night, so that, you know, that's totally fine. So that's been really good. I would say my control pause is never higher than 35. It's between 30 and 35
Okay.
on a daily basis in the mornings. And when I do practice, I do my first pause at 45 seconds, then at a minute, then a minute 15, and then I quit it because I don't want to provoke anything. I just want to check in sort of and wake my body up. And it actually, I feel very awake and good in the mornings anyway. So I don't feel like I'm dragging, or I don't have to drink
Yes.
caffeine to get going every day or anything like that.
Right.
My energy level, surprisingly, is very, very good. I work still a full schedule. I see about 32 clients a week, and standing on my feet. So
Yeah.
at about 22 weeks or so, or 23 weeks, I made a decision to start wearing some compression socks while I'm at work. So if I stand for a long period of time, it's definitely best to wear that so I don't swell. I don't really have swelling in my body, but your ankles can get a little thicker.
Sure.
And I had that in the beginning, but I haven't had it again. So it's pretty much settled now, which is something that happens in pregnancy. People swell.
Yeah.
And then I had a well, I mean, normally when you don't wear compression and you're up on your feet all day long, you would have sort of swelling by the end of the day. But when I move around a lot and you walk around a lot, you don't really have that. So I guess the walking motion on the feet pumped the lymph a little better in the legs. So you don't quite have the same swelling, even if I didn't wear compression and I did a bunch of physical work.
Yeah, definitely.
I exercise very mildly, maybe 2 times a week or so, or 3 times for a maximum. But I am up on my feet working 32 hours a week a day already. So
Yes.
32 hours a week already. So I just felt that a little bit of exercise, and I just do the necessary exercises similar to what a physical therapist told me to do to keep my body strong. I mean, there's a lot of things other than Buteyko that a person can do to help themselves get through things in the best way. And before I got pregnant, I went to see a physical therapist to sort of work on hip strength and also make sure that my feet's aligned. And so I have a proper orthotics I wear all the time too. So I have custom orthotics that was made for me. And since I am on my feet all day, so I think that it contributed to the fact that I have no body pain. My fascial stretching is totally fine. The way that my body is growing into the belly, like the fascial connective tissue itself is supple. And
Yes.
not only did the physical therapist say that, a rolfer told me the same thing. And I can tell I don't have any pains or anything like that that concerns like the stretching of the actual abdomen to accommodate a growing fetus.
Yes.
And
Excellent.
right, and so I mean, it's just like these little things that you can stay on top of already, you know,
Yeah.
stay on top of your breathing and stay on top of nutrition and all that kind of stuff. I'm not gaining extraordinary amounts of weight, but I have gained about 40 pounds since I started being pregnant. So, well, maybe 30. I had to gain about 10 pounds just to feel fat enough to get pregnant.
But I mean, you should, right? I mean, that's part
right.
of
Sometimes
the deal.
too skinniness. Like sometimes the body doesn't want to, doesn't want to, pregnancy didn't want to take. But I didn't really have a problem with it. I just felt like maybe I should gain some weight before. And then it's everything is within complete reason for what my body is. I don't feel bloated or puffy or anything like that in other areas of my body, and other than like my belly being much larger, and I'll stand up real quick so you can see that. So
oh, beautiful. Awesome.
So then we have a little belly now, and there's the top part of it and the bottom part of it. And it's all like, you know, I still sort of have a waist, you know, so it's not like, you know, it's overtaken my body in a way.
No, you're doing great. It's great.
Yeah, no, it's very good. I feel really excellent. I mean, I don't do things I'm not supposed to do. Don't drink caffeine. I don't drink alcohol. I don't over exercise. I don't do an abdominal type sit up, you know, like when you try to get up and do all that, you just do what you're supposed to do. When it's time to put your feet up, you put your feet up, you know, you don't go, okay, let me power on through and do some stuff.
Yes, definitely. But you're doing so well, because I mean, one of the things is the energy, right? One of the things that can suffer.
That's a big thing.
The pregnant women, like they feel tired, they feel like the energy is lacking because the baby is actually taking all the resources, right?
I mean, I've talked to a lot of people, and I think if I had, this is my first pregnancy, and I think if I had a child already, or maybe 2 children, that's all running around at this point, like it might be a different story as far as energy is concerned. It might be eaten up by other little ones.
Yeah.
But maybe I won't be working as many hours, you know, so like maybe there's a trade-off.
Also, yeah. Do you always stand when you're working, or is it?
Yeah, so I'm a massage therapist, a structural massage therapist, like therapeutic, deep tissue type of therapist. Act as a stretcher. I stretch people. I do personal training. I do exercises. I don't do it for them. I mean, I instruct them.
Yeah.
But I'm up and about and doing things all day. So that's my majority of my day is filled with something pretty active. Sometimes the work is calm and I'm sitting and doing like neck work on somebody, but there's always some sort of like core motion that comes out of my body.
Yes.
So yeah, and concentration. I mean, the brain does eat 20% of all the body's oxygen. So if there's some concentration happening, then, you know, you can get really tired just doing mental work too.
Yeah, and also, but that kind of work is intense. It's intense for the body. I mean, if you don't know how to get like into the neutral and just do the work and be relaxed into it, like it can take a big toll. Yeah. Never mind when you're pregnant. Yeah.
Right.
Excellent. I'm so happy to hear about that.
Yeah.
In regards to Buteyko, so you've decided to just do one practice?
Well, so I talked to Christopher about this. I said to Christopher, like, I'm doing this, and he's like, just be careful. Don't do too many sets, you know. And I am the type of person that might overdo something, you know, like yesterday I did do like 2 practices because I did a practice and then I worked out with my friend and then I did a practice afterwards, which is the routine for Buteyko. But I didn't push it to extremes. And like I said, 75 seconds, maybe 80 seconds is like the max that I would hold it. In the beginning of the pregnancy, I did about, like the first trimester, I did practice in the morning and practice in the evening. And I worked all the way up to 90 seconds. And then like the second trimester, I sometimes did 2 practices, most of the time 1 practice, and only up to 80 seconds. But the third trimester, Christopher advised me, he's like, well, you don't want to detox into the baby or anything like that. And so I doubt at this point, because I've had massive pauses before and I have cleansed significantly through this practice for many years, that I don't really have a risk of doing that. But I'm just checking in. I do some shallow breathing. I do a pause here and there. I'll do a little practice in the morning, and I pay attention to it. I pay attention to what's happening to my breathing.
Yeah, you're very in tune with your body also. So you know what's going on. You really know when you need it. You really know when you have to just let go and let the body take its own course, right?
You know, it's a really interesting thing that you say that, because, you know, I guess because I am in tune with my body, I don't really have the emotional upheaval that most people have when they're pregnant. To be honest, when I first started Buteyko, I'd never had bad cycles or anything like that. But after I was into practice for about 6 months, I never experienced any more menstrual cramping. So in my monthly cycle, I didn't have, I mean, I would feel it. I'm like, okay, yeah, there's stuff going on. And I can feel like the lining is breaking down in the inside of the uterus. But I never was like doubled over and ever felt like I needed pain medication or heating pads or anything like that. I never needed any of that stuff. And I might have had a moment, like a flash of frustration or anger or something that I'm like, oh, it's probably close. You know, like when people experience PMS, like I don't experience that. So maybe because I've been doing the practice for so long that my hormones are in a more even keeled place, and that I'm just much more aware of my own emotion and doing the advanced work so many times already, noticing sort of like doing self-inquiry and sort of not getting swept away with all the things around me has probably helped me stay emotionally very balanced in this pregnancy, which is sometimes people say, well, this baby's eating your brain and you can't remember anything, or you're sort of spaced out, or so people get really emotional, they cry a lot, or, you know, I've not experienced any of that at all, really. There might have been a flash here and there, but it's not something that I would say is out of the ordinary for a normal person, whether you're pregnant or not.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And
this is so interesting.
And that's so I think that the hormonal balance of everything is really interesting. And I think it's very, I mean, I was driving home today from work and I realized, I was like, you know, all this work that I've done over the past 4 years, I mean, over the past 14 years, but just the Buteyko work that I've done and all that effort and all those days I didn't want to practice and got frustrated or cleansed, or, you know, 4 practice a day, it's so much time. I mean, it's like totally paying off. It's like when I used to compete in swimming and you train so hard and you feel like, why am I doing this to myself? I mean, and then you go to a meet and you swim just extraordinary, or you go to the Olympics, or you win a medal, you break a record, you break your own record. And then you're like, this is why I did it all, you know? So I kind of feel like I've been in training for this my whole life, and now I'm just reaping the benefits of it all, you know? So it's really been quite an amazing experience. And
doesn't get better than that, right? Because you're hosting a new life, so it's real. You know? It's not.
Yeah, and the environment that I live in too. I mean, my husband is like, I think because my hormones are even killed, that it helps the whole environment or the energetics in the house too, that both of us feel like it's such a pleasant, great experience. Yeah. So it's not like because something I have experienced, but I have heard from people who get pregnant and the husband starts having a hard time sleeping at night. And just because he's worried and it's a new thing and so on and so forth, it's not really happening to him, but there's a sense of super relaxation around us all, you know, that's been like, oh no, this is normal, this is natural, our bodies can handle it, you know, there's absolutely no problems.
Yeah, that's very powerful, actually. I've had conversations with women. It's not specifically about Buteyko or about pregnancy, but it's in the realm of relationships, because it's something that I have always sensed, because there seems to be like a mismatch between, so in society today, there's like a mismatch, like, you know, women have become very competitive and they're working hard and all of that. They're competing with men in certain areas, Mm-hmm. And I don't mean competition in a negative way. It's just the way it is, Right. And there's this drive, There's this drive, and so my experience, because I come from a more traditional family, is, and I always tell my women friends, I tell them, like, you are so powerful. Like the whole environment feeds from your, for lack of a better word, of your energy, of your attitude, of what you build emotionally around you. Yeah. And what you're describing is like husbands sleeping badly is probably because they feel like the fragility of the woman, like she's not well, or she's suffering, or she's going through a hard time. And okay, how am I going to handle that? And the man needs actually to feel confident. Okay, she's good. Okay, she's all right. And on top of that, like she's creating this great glowing, environment around the whole, in this case, the pregnancy. Yeah.
Right.
And I think that's so important. It's amazing to hear what you're doing, because it's great. I mean,
It's and it's interesting. I feel like there is an easier way for me to embody the femininity of myself, or the female, the femaleness of me, because my body is doing something that only a woman's body can do, and and that there is massive. I mean, you said there's massive power in it. I do believe that, and I have always believed that. And I'm not saying that women are the greatest, because I am one, but well, that's an attribute of what I am, I guess. But sometimes a woman can help straighten everything out. Sometimes if a woman is having a really hard time in a family, whether she has had children already, it sort of like causes a tornado in the inside, and everything around her is affected. If she can stay even keeled and with her own emotion and stay in her power and not give that out, or like not let that diminish, it's like she will strengthen everybody all around her. And I've seen that. I mean, I've seen it in my own household growing up. I've seen it just listening to people's stories. I do have the privilege that when people do come in, I get to have an intimate conversation with people, and people do talk about their lives, and I get to learn a lot from people, in other words. And actually, I also learn a lot what not to do. Mostly I do learn what not to do, but I can see that it's almost when a woman can hold herself together and channel her power, that it powers everything else. A husband can do it, but it probably takes even more power to make that happen than it does for a woman. And I think that's where the true power of being a woman lies. You do have a lot of power.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. I would say it's a complementary energy, because also what happens, like the woman needs the man at the same time. Yeah. So there's this fusion of the masculine and the feminine that is, I mean, it's just how nature is built. Yeah.
Right.
And
I have to say, this is something I'd like to talk about actually for a second. And this has nothing to do with the pregnancy, but it probably has to do with being ready for pregnancy, because I would say 14 years ago, obviously wasn't ready to be a mother, and I wasn't ready to step into this role, anything like that. But I was kind of like, when you said the competitiveness of being a woman and being sort of walking into a role and competing with men on different levels, in different ways. And I'm a deep tissue therapist. So like I am a female that does that. So that's at a complete advantage. So a lot of people want to be massaged or be worked on by a woman instead of a man. So if I can compete with men on that level, like I can just kick their butts, So it's almost something that gives you this not superiority feeling, but something that gives you like an extra power, and you sort of get really wrapped into that, which is, I think, a very good thing sometimes. Sometimes it's something that can sort of strain your femininity in a way. And I would say that I didn't quite step into the role of where I'd like to be as a woman until like maybe 6-7 years ago. And so I had to actually learn how to embrace that part of myself, because I come from a highly athletic background with lots of competition, then stepped into a personal training / therapeutic bodywork world where I did some of that too. And then sort of like then had to learn, how do I become soft? And when you started to learn how to do that, that's when things started to move and you started to realize, oh, this part of myself hasn't healed yet. And that's, I think, why I sought out so many different modalities of healing, whether it was mental health counseling or hypnosis or psychotherapy or somatic experiencing or trauma release or whatever that might be. So you start realizing I have been covering all these things with this really hard shell, and to truly be the softness of myself, I had to heal all these aspects of it. And in the process, it's like, that's really, really great. Now, I wish I found Buteyko 10 years ago. It would have been really awesome. You know, it would have made this process a lot easier to deal with. But I did find it, and I found it, I guess, in the right place. You know, when the student is ready, the master appears. And so it did happen for me. And I think through the process of actually physically balancing my hormones through this practice, it helped evolve the mental aspect of that too. Because it all goes together. You can't separate one from the other.
Totally. How do you find this connection? Because obviously you're not practicing 4 times a day. You're just practicing once per day. You have a good control pulse, but it's not spectacularly high, and yet you're doing very well. And yet Buteyko, so what seems to be happening is there's 2 aspects of it. Like, you created some reserves, and at the same time you have the mental tools that affect all that system.
Right.
So that
I do. That's very true. That's exactly right what you said. You know, I mean, I would practice more, but I really am erring on the side of caution to not do too much stuff. And it also helps me not to do too much stuff in other parts of my life too, actually, and not overdo anything. And I feel like my mental capacity has increased so much that I can control a lot of stuff. The only thing you can control is yourself, okay, and my own reactions to life and to things all around me. But I have a much stronger control over that. It's a strong control pause. I feel like a control pause of 35 it's not spectacular. I mean, I used to sit at 55 on a regular basis, right? And I don't feel all that different. And I think the pregnancy might just be sucking it from me in that way, you know? So it's like, it's just, maybe it's like a control pause of 50, but I'm sitting at 35, who knows? You know, I don't know. There's not been a lot of people talking about this. So like, you know, here I'm the big experiment, I guess, even though people have been doing this, but it's not like you've had students that have done this for, you know, 4 years and then had a pregnancy and then could, you know, I feel like you guys haven't been able to tell me like how that even works. So like, I am it, you know, as far as the testimonial for how this works, like being, you know, really doing the practice, and then like, okay, now you get pregnant. Now, how do you handle all that stuff while you're pregnant, you know? And I don't feel like I should practice more. I don't feel bad.
That's very interesting, actually. Well, I mean, you're doing something that is built in nature, you know. It's been there for millions of years, and maybe that's the way it should be, because I mean, you are a strong mother because you started from a very strong position, and now your body is just happy to give.
Right, and I think that's true. I think that you know, it's not like, I mean, we teach the brain to reset the breathing control center with this method, right? It's like we train the brain. And so we also train the brain with the mental work to learn how to do introspective, to do self-inquiry, and to know, you know, to understand that I'm not all these things and I'm not attached to these things. These are all attributes. And what I am is just it, is I am. And being able to sit with that a little bit and contemplate that is something that's very relaxing, whether you do practice or not. I am doing quite a bit of shallow breathing. I'm always doing it when I'm driving. Sometimes I'm doing it when I'm watching TV. I think the baby likes it. It moves around a lot whenever I do it.
Yeah. Well, shallow breathing brings with it like a sense of nourishing. I find.
And you have to not force it, but you have to concentrate on relaxation. And I think the relaxing of the abdomen is something that is very important. People are very tight and bound in their abdomens. So that my diaphragm is relaxed, it is not an uncomfortable feeling. You know, a lot of people say how they would get acid reflux, and I don't. And the only time in my life I would actually get acid reflux is if I had an emotional upheaval. Like if I had like a big emotional argument with somebody, or if I got really, really, really upset about something, I would have sort of like a heartburn. It's almost like just the acid of the experience is like coming back up or something like that. But lots of people experience heartburn with pregnancy, and I can say I really haven't felt that. And my appetite's actually a little stronger now than it was. But I think that that's sort of expected. I think the baby gets larger and demands more calories or something like that. But
I don't know, but it makes sense.
In the same breath, I can also say that, and I'm not saying everybody should do intermittent fasting, but I was a very big intermittent faster. Sometimes I would eat one meal a day. Sometimes I'd eat a half a meal and then like maybe a full meal. And it's not, you know, not like I walk around starving myself. Like I would just go, okay, well, now I think it's time to eat now. And then we'll eat some food. And then you might eat a smaller meal later on or something like that, or a snack. I don't have any issues with like this whole blood sugar drop or you know, people have said like sometimes you just got to eat like right now, and if you don't eat right now, then you're just gonna eat your arm or something like that. I don't experience that at all. But maybe it's because I have trained myself for such a long period of time with not constantly feeling I had to eat all the time.
Yeah.
So but when I do eat, I have to say, I mean, I do follow the Western Price guidelines when it comes to eating. And I make sure that I get all the nutrient dense foods in first. Like I'll get in like liver pate, butter, lard, cheese, avocados, sardines. I'll eat meat, lamb, lots of fat. And then I will eat some vegetables and things like that too, but I can't overdo it because there's only that much room. So I don't fill myself up with like useless carbs or pizza, or sometimes I dream about pizza and I think like that would be nice to eat. And then I turn around and I eat like, you know, some avocado with like cheese and some egg yolks. But taking cod liver oil and making sure I get, you know, seaweed in and, you know, those kind of things, make sure I get all the necessary vitamins in. And I think because I've been doing that very diligently, even before I was pregnant, for many years, actually, that's why I didn't have any cravings. Because people, you know, it's almost like people can like, oh, you're pregnant. How are you feeling? Because they think you're going to say you feel like shit. I don't. I feel awesome. I feel awesome, you know. Oh, how's your energy? My energy is great. Oh, really? You know, it's almost like they're hoping that I say something like negative. You know, it's like people want to just hear negative stuff all the time. That's why the news sells. But like, so are you craving anything? And I'm like, not really. You know, I do like to eat liver pate though. So like, I mean, sometimes they're like, "Ooh, I really just want to eat that," and I eat one sandwich of that, and it's like really satiating because it is so nutrient dense. I don't feel like I have to eat volumes of food to feel like I am nourishing my body. In other words.
And you're doing intermittent fasting, so you're eating.
I don't. I just you know, sort of never been a breakfast person. I mean, okay, we can say breakfast, but breakfast is really the first meal of the day, correct? So whether it's in the morning or whether it's in the middle of the day or whether it's later in the afternoon, breakfast is breaking the fast of the day. And I don't do that generally before 11 o'clock. So and it's not like I need to. So sometimes I'm like Wednesday, I ate at like 9 o'clock because I was up at 4:30 and I did a workout and I did some stuff and did some chores and took a shower. I'm like, oh, I think I can eat some food now, you know. So I ate it because I was hungry, not because it was breakfast.
Sure.
You know, so I go, okay, it's time to eat something now. It's not a very comfortable feeling to work with a bunch of food in your stomach either. And I have noticed, we talk to students about eating and, do your practice first and then eat afterwards. And I have noticed that sometimes I will eat something and it doesn't matter. It could be the greatest, best food or whatever, but you'll get slightly congested. Not congested. I would say you get like your nose wants to close up a little bit. And I can tell my body is asking me to breathe less when I do that. So there is a tax on the body when you eat. And that's why I think if you're going to eat, you need to eat all the right things.
Yeah.
Because, you don't need all that volume in there. But you need nutrient density in there.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
I mean, when you eat butter and cream and pate and, avocado and cheese and stuff, I mean, gosh, it's really calorie rich. So you get a good amount of calories in, but you don't get all this volume of food in all the time either.
Yeah.
So it doesn't feel like all this pressure or like this demand. And I mean, digesting animal food, I know it's harder on breathing, but digesting animal food is also very comfortable for my body. My body can do it, very easily. Whereas you're going to eat something very rough or hard, like lots of cereals or grains or something like that. I think sometimes that's a little bit nails on a chalkboard for your body. So, I mean, I do enjoy.
I find that some proteins digest. It depends on the person. Yeah. And
right. I mean, have you talked to Isaac lately?
Oh, I know he's eating meat.
Eats a pretty much he's eating a complete carnivore diet and doing Buteyko, and his pauses are high. But here's the thing: I think that when we teach students to stay away from that kind of stuff, it's because they have a control pause of 20. I mean, if you have low control pauses and you're really struggling with your practice, then you might need to do more fasting, and you might need to do more, monitoring, like, let's eat just a little bit of food or just eat the maximum amount that I need to eat. But you don't have a different agenda of like feeding a baby or like, nursing or, something like that where your body is.
And also, how to follow your body. Once you've been in a control pose of steady 55, I mean, your instincts are going to be right. And if you're pregnant the way you're being pregnant with a lot of energy, and okay, so I wonder if there is a sum. I mean, this may come up as a joke, but maybe you have a 35, but your baby already has a control pose of 30 also, So
well, I mean, Christopher told me the babies can hold their breath 3 minutes when they're born.
Exactly. I mean,
they're full of CO2 when babies are born. You're very unscathed as a small baby. I mean, that's why Buteyko would take people who would say, what are you talking about? You're not supposed to breathe shallow like that. That's not natural for a human. And he would take them into a maternity ward and he would say, look at how these babies breathe. And you can look at them and it's like this little motion of their belly, and it's basically like a vibration. And you try to mimic that. It's very difficult, shallow breathing like that. So I think, he had a big point.
Do you do that? Do you do a shallow breathing now, like really, really small, like almost like, I mean, Vladimir told me once that it's 120 per minute.
Yes, and I actually set a metronome one time to do that, and it's very, 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 very difficult. Yeah, I don't think I can quite do it like that. We'll have to see like how I come out of this process.
It doesn't have to be 120, but I mean, like this sort of like, it goes like this, like.
Yeah.
And
so, I mean, that is a deep meditation. People say, oh, I meditate. Well, I mean, shallow breathing is that's all you can think about. You can't think about anything else. And when you think about that only, all the thoughts go away, all the noise and stuff goes away. And you do that for, 10 minutes, that's going to profoundly change how your physiology is functioning, for the next couple of hours after that.
Yeah. So you feel that sense of nourishment, when you do that?
I feel a less sense of nourishment, or I feel more nourishment?
More. I'm asking, did you feel
when I do shallow breathing,
like a nourishing sensation?
Yes. And as a matter of fact, sometimes when I'm doing something and I am hungry and I feel like, okay, I have time to eat here in the next bit, but I get like to do something for the next hour still. When you do some of that just on your own for like 5 minutes, it kind of takes that away. It almost like helps the ghrelin in your body or something like that to not be quite so hungry. And so, but then when you eat, it's you're ready to do it, and it's like you're really hungry for it. And I think it's like when you're more conscious and you're more aware of your body, you're also more aware of what you want to eat. So sometimes I stand there and I think, gosh, I want to eat this. Okay, and I'll do that. Sometimes my husband's at the mercy of what I want to eat, but he doesn't care. He just likes whatever I make. So like, I would be like, man, I really feel like I need to eat scrambled eggs with some, tomatoes. And I'll do that because it's what I wanted to eat. Or I go, I really want to eat a steak. I gotta go get a steak. And so you also, and you go, oh, I really want to eat pizza or donuts. Who doesn't want to eat desserts and shit all the time? So like, sometimes I go, okay, no, let me think about different foods. Like, let me think about eggs, and let me think about some sausage, and let me think about, butter, or, and if you think about it a little bit, your body eventually tells you, this is what I feel like I should be eating right now.
Mm-hmm.
But if your body says, I'm craving pizza, then it's like, you need to not listen to it. You need to know when to listen and when not to listen.
Yeah, that's where knowledge comes into play. Yeah, because you might have some cravings for certain things that that do good to your body, and you experience it. It's not just because you read books. It's like, you eat this and it goes well. Yeah, and you have this craving of this thing that if you eat it, it's not gonna go well.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I mean, I love ice cream, and but I make it myself. I get raw cream from a farmer. I have my own chickens for egg yolks. I have honey from like a local person, and I make my own extract with vanilla. So I'll put that all together and I'll make my own ice cream. So even the ice cream that I eat is super nourishing. I'm like, I can even eat it with a mentality of, this is like really tasty, and it lights up great brain center, and there's probably oxytocin happening in there. And so, but I'm also at the same time eating nutrient density. Yes. And that's what's important. I think when you start eating things like pizza, that's not nutrient dense, but it's calories, but it's not nutrient dense. And I think that's what, there's nobody in America really starving, but they are starving for nutrients, and they're starving for minerals, and especially fat soluble vitamins. And so those are the ones I always make sure of that I have. I mean, everybody talks about vitamin D, but they don't talk about the other three, and they're very important, and they all have to be balanced with each other. And that's why the best way to get them in is in like real whole food. Now, what's great about this method is when you do those things, that they assimilate into your body better. They just do. Yeah. So all the healthy eating that you're already doing becomes amplified just doing this method, because it makes your hormones work better. It makes your digestion work better. It makes your absorption work better, because you can eat all the greatest food you want, but if your body can't digest it and absorb it, it's useless.
Absolutely. That's so important. Yeah,
exactly.
But coming back into what you said about, so I find, for example, and this is this is what we teach in the workshops, at least from the Spanish side, because of Martha, yeah. But so things like lamb are actually very good. I eat lamb, and it's like I haven't eaten anything. It sits so well in my body. If I eat just lamb, it's like, and I can eat quite a lot of it actually. And when I finish, I'm like, I'm barely digesting here. It's quite incredible.
Yeah.
And similar with like a big steak of red meat, and actually I get chicken, and it's like, oh my God,
I know.
Heavy.
It is. It's very interesting. It's very interesting. I live in Florida, so I have access to very, very good seafood, and very fresh fish. Like, it's very fresh from the ocean, and it's very sustainable, blah, 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 all these things. And I have noticed, and I think it has to do with fat content of different things. And I think the fat content is something that helps you out better. So lamb is a pretty fatty meat. Goat's a very fatty meat, very similar to each other. If I could solely eat that, I would. It's a fantastic. I grew up eating that a lot, but it's definitely something that's really good. And beef, yes, because it takes longer to digest, but I think it has to do with fat content. I feel like if I eat chicken breast, it's harder for me than if I eat a chicken thigh. And if I eat duck, it's better than I eat chicken. It is more fat in the duck. And I think maybe the fat absorption or whatever that helps, maybe a corticosteroid in there. Now, it's different for every person. If a person has bad lymphatic drainage and they eat a lot of fat, it's going to be bad for them because their liver can't handle that. Because it's still cleansing lymphatics all the time. I mean, that's why we recommend that people really not abstain from food, but really only eat what you have to eat. And go, okay, well, can you eat this little bit of food and just get on? Like maybe have some soup, or something that maybe have broth instead of meat or something like that, or something that's well cooked or, it's easy to digest. So your body doesn't have to work so hard to deal with it, where you can focus on your practice to get better. And I think that before I got to the practice, I've already done all these nutritional things that it was rather easy for me to go through the practice. I didn't have to like revamp my whole diet and fix everything to do that. I did have to just remove some things like fresh milk. I have noticed fresh milk's not something that doesn't, it could be the greatest. A2 whole raw milk, but there's something about it. It causes phlegm. I feel like I'm clearing my throat. I feel like I'm going to be congested slightly. Yep. But I can take that and I can culture it into a yogurt or into a kefir or a kefir, and just the probiotic aspect of it totally changes the whole way that my body digests it. So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I can have fresh whole raw cream and there's no problem, but I think it has to do with the milk sugars or something like that might be really affecting. Sometimes very sugary things, and I have to say this, and it normally happens the next day, and this is before I got pregnant, but I have noticed that if you eat really sweet desserts like pecan pie or lots and lots of ice cream that's you got from a restaurant or something like that, a lot of cake and party food or something like that, the next day the pauses are very difficult.
Yes.
Because I think that sugar in the body is just it's a toxin, and I think it goes through the liver and
toxic. Really it's toxic and stinky, and it's bad. Yeah.
So I think excellent. But I do think that when you become more in tune with, that's why Isaac can eat meat basically, and I mean he's drinking like 3 raw eggs and raw milk, and he's I mean he's doing absolutely fantastic. Like I mean he's very, very athletic, and his
crazy.
His body is healed so well, and like just nice to see somebody who was 19 years old who could barely like get out of bed is now doing crazy handstands and lots of exercise and stuff like that. So it's nice to see, but he did all the work before. He did clean his body up. So at that point, then you can work these things back in, and it would serve you more.
Yeah. I also find with the food, like that sometimes this for a couple of weeks you feel like, gee, I don't need to eat, and you don't eat, and you have all the energy, and you have. So one thing that I have experienced is that I'm not exercising much now, but until very recently, I exercise always quite a bit. I mean, I went quite crazy with CrossFit around 2015 or so, and I did it a lot, yeah. Mm-hmm. And then I started to do less, yeah. But I still could feel that. So with Buteyko, I started to practice more seriously, and I started to take very seriously that just through the nose breathing, yeah. And I noticed that and I ate much less, and I noticed that I lost quite a bit of weight, but my strength was the same. Yeah.
Yeah.
So in CrossFit, you have
Yeah.
all these kinds of movements that you can really test yourself to that. And so less weight, same strength. I know I was never too strong, I've never been a strong guy. I'm more like, like a workout of 35 minutes where I'm rowing and carrying things for a long distance, things that are not too heavy, but so that those are the workouts that I do best. Yeah. But, you always work a little bit on your strength. And, to just keep the same strength with less weight, it was very obvious that something was going on there. And then you have cycles where you need to eat a bit more. So you do, but that's because you're in tune with your body. Yeah.
Right. And I think it's because you're not eating because it's breakfast, lunch, or dinner. I really think
Totally. No.
that this method is something that, I hate that we tell people, now do the practice before breakfast, before lunch, and before dinner, and
then
before
it's
bed.
like,
And
forget about
we
it.
always say it's like a little rhyme we say to everybody. But
Yeah.
if you're gonna eat, just do some practice before you do it, and do it 4 times a day or 5 times a day or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think the regimentation, or like the routine of something. Now, I was an extremely routine person, and I like a routine, but I changed my schedule so much over the years that every day is a different day. I don't go to work every day at this time. I sometimes go to work early in the morning. I sometimes go to work in the middle of the day. Sometimes I work late. Sometimes I stop in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
And I think it's because I can control that, it's great. I think that's really good. And I think even a shift worker could do well with this practice, because now we're going to work nights, and now we're going to work in the day, and now we're going to do this and that. I think sometimes disrupting all that stuff is good. Now, they would say it's really bad for your circadian rhythm, but I think sometimes these fluctuation and changes in your body is something that is like a homeostasis. It sort of like creates like your body's like, now I got to adapt this way. Now I got to adapt that way. So it's like weightlifting for like your own body rhythms all the time, instead of staying in the same old rhythm over and over, and always getting up at the same time, and always eating a slice of toast and some tea, and then like do this next thing. And 4 o'clock, we're doing tea again and have a crumpet, or it's not, you just don't do things like that.
It's actually more natural to have changes, because I can imagine that throughout evolution, we have had to deal with many challenges at many different times of the day, with many, changes in the environment as well. And nowadays, there are so many aggressors, in terms of chemicals, in terms of light itself, for example. Yeah. And I remember I was very big on circadian rhythms. And because I really noticed that they affected me. But now with Buteyko, I realized that they affected me because there was something else they're missing. Right. And the capability of the body to really adapt to things that they shouldn't be really there, in terms of nature, of what nature demands, but you cope with it so much better. And the night shifts is one of the things that are very interesting. Sometimes I do really well. And it's like with the food, sometimes I can take shall we say, it's not really related, but sometimes with food, as we say, we can eat more for a while, and then we can eat much less. And with the night shift, is the same. Sometimes I handle them very well, and sometimes it's like, no, I just got to go with the day, because otherwise I can't do it. But sometimes you can, sometimes it's like, I've been up all night and I'm going for a ride, with my bike. I've done that, so it's kind of, and it's kind of exciting, it's much more exciting. It's like, oh, look at what my body can do, but also look at what my body needs. Yeah. It's a much more natural process, actually.
Right. I think, being an American and living in America, America is a very driven country. It's probably one of the hardest working countries. Maybe some Asian countries are harder working than Americans are, but America's, and then this, I'm not saying that there's lazy people. What I'm saying is, like, I'm always around people who are very driven and people who are very hardworking people. And I think sometimes, kind of like Buteyko's method is to teach you to not do things in excess, or to basically to overbreathe. And overbreathing causes you to also overdo things and overtrain. And I mean, I also got really into the CrossFit, and I would do 2-3 workouts a day, work 10 hours with clients, and then, you know, like do all this other stuff. And just because you can do something doesn't always mean you should do something. And I think sometimes your body is designed to do something more, and it can. It's like, wow, I worked 12 hours a day outside and we were doing all this manual stuff. And then the next day you wake up, you feel like, oh, I feel pretty good, and I'll do a little bit of stuff. And then 2 days after that, you feel like I just want to watch TV and read my book or something. And I think if you had to hold yourself to working those 12 hours like that every single time, then mentally it would be very draining. Physically, it'd be very draining. But then you start becoming depressed because you can't keep that up.
Yeah.
And I think it's you know, unobtainable goals eventually is a deep cause for depression. You know, fear of the future is anxiety, but like when you feel like I can't reach this goal, and I've always reached it. And I hear this from people that have struggled with the aging process. I'm like, well, I used to be able to do this, and I used to be able to do that. And I feel like you should just do today what you should be doing today. And that's really kind of where it ends. Not, I did all these things in the past, and, you know, how's my future going to look? My future is not going to look so good because I can barely do this today, and I could do that. I mean, I've seen people couldn't do something in their 20s and they can do it in their 30s. And I've seen people who do something, can barely do stuff in their 50s, and they retire and they totally change their life, and they like, they're 75 and they do climb Machu Picchu, you know? I mean, there's lots of different ways on how to look at something. But if you look at something in the moment as, I need to obtain these ways of access that I've had before, I need to always have this amount of money, and I always have to have these things and work these amount of hours and have these amount of clients, I think it will lead to a lot of depression, and it would lead to you feeling down a lot. And you know, different stages calls for different things. You need to be doing a different thing at a different time all the time. That's actually something that my husband taught me a lot of. He's like, Renate, I'm, you know, because I say, I'm going to take 2 weeks off or something from work. And he's like, okay, that's great. It's like, it doesn't change for him in how he takes time off. If he goes somewhere, he's like, okay, I'm going somewhere, but I might be still answering phone calls or doing something. But then when he's at home, he doesn't ever feel like he's now I'm working again. And so, you know, I got to do this routine. It's just every day is like, what are you doing today? Oh yeah, I gotta get these things done, and so I'll get this done, and I'm gonna do these and see these clients and do these things at the office, and so on and so forth. It's never like this, I'm working and then I have my life. It's just like, you know, it's like that. And I was like, wow, what an interesting way of like looking at something, because I had my sport, I had my school, I had my schoolwork, I had like, you know, my personal life, I had my family life, you know. But, you know, my husband has a natural control pause of like 40 seconds without doing this method. And I've checked him a bunch of times, and he's even done the method a little bit. But I mean, he sort of like just does that, because I think it has to do with mental attitude at the end of the day. You know, I think your mental attitude, if you're not so type A or like, you know, like regimented, it's easier for you to go with the flow and have your breathing be better. As opposed to like really falling into the rat race of like how things are done and the routine of how everything works.
It's so important, the thing you mentioned. I mean, we put ourselves under so much pressure, and it doesn't even mean that we cannot do a lot of things, you know, but it's sometimes it has to come from another place, you know. It's and what you said is very true, that you said that this like so different ages and different situations are for, you have to be aware that they're there for a reason. It's the same for the same reason. At 50, you're not going to be able to do the athletic feats that you did at 25, for the same reason that a 14-year-old boy who's getting into puberty, or a 14-year-old girl is not gonna follow butterflies in the field. You know, you did that when you were 5, you know, and that was the time to do that. And you did that kind of exercise where you like big burst and oh my God, you know, you're all over the place.
Yeah,
And that's
exactly.
beautiful at that age. If you keep doing that at 20, people will be like, something's off here, yeah. And rightly so, you know. And so
That's a perfect example of like, you know, it's like saying you can't ever have it all. Like when you're young, you got all the time and all the energy, but no money. And then when you get older, then you have the money and the energy, but no time. And then when you're old, you got all the money and you know, all the time and no energy. And you just have to like have, you know, go with like what you have and the time you have it.
yeah, and enjoy it. But I mean, me somehow I had this intuition when I was in my early 30s. You know, when I was in my 20s, I actually suffered quite a lot. I don't know exactly why, but I did. You know, and little by little, I started to arrive to for whatever reason. I was, you know, my thinking was realigning, and I knew that in my 40s I will be happy, and has become true. But I'm not happy because anything is better than anything else. It's just my pose, you know. I'm much calmer, you know, and I have get to know my body much better, my mind much better. All those cycles that happen, and you can be so confused when you're young, you know. If you you know, I mean, we're surrounded by duties that we don't know why they're there. We're surrounded by, you know, toxins, you know, in the food. You think you're eating right. You know, I was always interested in that, but you're actually not, you know. So this is that you need a lot of wisdom. And when that comes, it's like, you don't need to run whatever it is you do. Is like, you don't need to do 100-meter freestyle in 50 seconds. You just do something else, you know, and you also become physically more capable for certain other things. I noticed that I am much more capable for constant work, for example. Like I don't get drained with that, you know, and it's something that comes with age, and it's a resilience that is in the body that comes from experience as well. And it's the same for what we're talking about. It's the same for what we're talking about. It's like, for example, pregnancy. Yeah. So it's a different situations, and you're going to enjoy it in a very different way. You're going to do different things, and you're going to feel it. You're going to follow this wisdom that your own body has, you know, because it's there. It really, the body is incredible. If you tune into it, it's like there's trillions of processes per second that you don't even know about, you know. So
it is it's very, I think, appreciating everything in the time you're appreciating it, but I think that comes, what you're saying is coming back to being in the present moment and enjoying it in the present moment. Now, you said something about not being drained when you do your work, and that's something that over the past 4 years has become more apparent as I've been doing this work. Your capacity becomes massive, because I feel like the higher my tolerance for CO2 gets, or just the sensitivity of the CO2 not being quite so high, it increases my patience, and it increases my capacity for work, and it increases my I mean, patience is a big thing. I don't say that very lightly. I say you have patience for people not making progress, and you have patience for people. You sit in traffic and it's almost like I purposefully like go in the lane that's slower or something, just sometimes to test it and like, and see how my body will react internally of that. And can I calm down within that? Because it's like a little exercise in patience.
Yeah.
But your capacity to work and say, wow, I worked 8 hours straight and I actually feel really good and I want to go do something right now. You know, I don't go, no, okay, let me sit down. Now, sometimes you don't always feel like that, because sometimes there was more going on and more physicality, and not every day is the same. But it
even having more
does
energy.
create, pardon?
Even having more energy after those 8 hours.
Right. And sometimes it's a good idea just to relish in the fact that you have energy. You don't have to go burn it up. You go, I feel
Yes,
pretty
yes.
good. Now,
This is a
instead of
very
like
good
going to
point.
burn it, instead of burning it up, let me
Yeah.
just like read my book, because sometimes I'll read my book and be like, man, I get 2 pages into it and I'm just gonna pass out. Where if you might feel really energetic, like I'm just gonna go to bed at 9:30 and I'm just gonna read my book, and maybe you read for an hour and a half. You're like, okay, I'm ready to go to bed at 11. And then you put it down, you got, 100 pages into something.
Yeah.
But it also gives you more wisdom to make that decision, to not say, oh wow, I feel really good, like I'm gonna go burn it off somewhere.
Yes, 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 yes. And I mean, you're pregnant. I mean, what is it? I mean, you want that energy. You want to keep it. You want to nourish.
Oh yes,
You want to
true.
stay nourished. Yeah. This was something very interesting that I actually learned it from Martha. There was this student who was saying like, "Oh, I have much more energy, and I want to run and stuff." And she was like, "Yeah, good, but this is your energy. Keep it. Keep it for
Yes.
yourself. Keep it for your body needs it also."
Right.
Which is this thing that we're talking about. Sometimes we go out there, right? So I have energy. I'm going to exercise like crazy. Yeah.
Right.
Great. You can do that. That's fine. If that's what your body is really asking for, go for it. But also you need, so there's many processes in the body that you are, as I say, you're not even aware that they're happening. Maybe they also need that that
Energy.
energy. And it's good to keep
Exactly.
it sometimes, just you just feel good. Okay, fine, I feel good. I'm not going to do anything with it. I just feel good, Yeah, I mean the key is that this gives you freedom.
Exactly.
No, you have much
It's freedom like you have never felt before. And I think, I mean, I almost want to say that you can have freedom and be in jail, like physically and literally,
Yep.
and because you're free in yourself.
Yep.
And I think that's what helps something. I think a lot of times also people might get pregnant and they might feel like, I'm not free. I can't drink, I can't smoke, I can't drink coffee, I can't do these things, I can't, go on roller coasters, and I feel like I'm constricted by this pregnancy, where I felt like that for 1 second. As a matter of fact, I feel like this baby is helping me feel like I'm using steroids or something, and it's making me feel really, really good, like I feel high or something. But because I embrace that feeling and I don't go, okay, I'm constricted. And I think a lot of people who are young parents, or just parents in general, people who have a baby for the first time, and all of a sudden this infant is like, because I watch my friends and it is like it almost consumes them. And because it consumes them, they don't know, they have a really hard time with how to handle the normal things of life that they would have normally handled. For instance, I learned with the Buteyko Method, you don't really need to sleep that much, for instance.
Yeah.
Regardless of what people say, you got to do 8 hours and all this kind of stuff. But if you really do the method, I mean, I can sleep just great on 4.5 hours a day.
Mhm.
And if you say, well, 4.5, okay, and I take like a little nap over here or something, if I really exerted myself and needed it. But it's sort of something that helps you not feel confined by the phase that you're in. Like one of my clients had a struggle one time with being in school, and he felt that he needed to be somewhere else. He needed to be working, he needed to be like already doing his job or something, but he had a hard time just feeling like, I'm in school and it's holding me back and like all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, just surrender to being in school and just be there, not think you need to be somewhere else. It's kind of like when Christopher talks about in the advanced work, it's like saying something isn't how it should be, and it is the opposite of how it is. And then you create that conflict, and that conflict of mind is what makes you breathe deeper. And it's the same thing. It's like thinking I should be over here, but I'm over here, but I should be there. And it's like that conflict is something that's really harmful for breathing, but also for your health and for your mental capacity. But if you're just like, I'm just here, this is where I'm at, we're staying. And the method helps you be in that position so that I'm just where I'm at and not be like having to burn a candle over here or doing something over there or whatever.
It's quite an art, actually. It's something that develops with practice also, like being in the now. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And before I found this method, I mean, I've read Eckhart Tolle's book, The Power of Now. Like, I mean, I think I've read it like at least 10 times. And there's always, I would have a bad day and I would like get my phone out and it was an audio and I would like push a button and it would just randomly open up a part of the book and I would start reading it or listening to it.
Yeah.
And I would listen to it for like, 20 minutes, 30 minutes or something. And I remember one time I listened to it and it's like, you're the problem. Like said that. I was like, did you just say I'm the problem? And we all are our own problems, so like you get over yourself and just be where you're at and actually you'll have peace there.
Yes.
And not expect something to be what it's not or where it's not.
Ultimately it is like that. Yeah. Yeah. Great.
That's awesome. This is a great conversation. Yeah, I don't want to like, I mean, it's like midnight over there where you're at. So, I'm in the country, I live on a farm and obviously I'm going to have a child and eventually I'm going to homeschool the child. And so like, but you get very much involved in the community when you do that.
Yes.
But something, what you're building is something that eventually you'll have your child do. So your child can learn how to work with all these different things, to learn how to do digital things.
Yeah.
Where in the beginning of their lifetime, you need to hold them away from those things so that they can develop properly,
Yes.
Right.
Oh, that's a big conversation, actually. I think we should have a conversation around that, maybe with Irene and with Martha, perhaps, because these things they're becoming massively important because I've been listening to a researcher lately called Alison McDowell, and she goes into all the things that are coming, with education, technology, impact investment and things like that, and many things that I don't even have the language for, She starts like rolling names and I thought, what is that? Look on the internet, it's like, oh, okay. It's pretty crazy what's coming. And we, I am also thinking of becoming a parent, not immediately, but perhaps in the near future. And this is going to be incredibly important because so I don't know what your position is in all the things that are happening. Everybody has like a bit of an angle, but it's so from what I gather is like total control, and they can afford to give up on us. We're in our 40s, 30s, 40s, 50s. They're not going to care much about us, but the children, they want them, they want them already hooked. See in China, they have these classes where they wear these things where they tell the teacher in a computer if they're paying attention and stuff like that. And it's like, that's such a wrong use of technology, because technology is just a tool. It depends how you use it. Yeah.
Right. It's interesting that you say that. There's a book that we're going to go on vacation soon. On Sunday we're leaving, and one of my friends at the office who has taken care of many children in her life, like as a caretaker, she's like, I discovered this book. It's really great. It's called Hunt, Gather, Parent. So it's the hunt, gather, parent. And I was like, wow, that sounds like it's right up my alley. I mean, we're kind of hunter-gatherer kind of mentality, my husband and I, and we're like, interesting. So I listened to a podcast where this woman got interviewed, and she talks about how she went around to actually hunter-gatherer tribes, like the Inuit and the Hutzes in Africa, and like, so she went to these villages to look at how they actually parent their children and how vastly different it is to the West.
Yeah.
Now, remember, technology is everywhere. It's in the Amazon. Okay. The shamans in the Amazon have like, they actually have Amazon, you know, like, I mean, they can, they have Coca-Cola and cell phones. Everybody's got all that in Africa too, you know. There's more cell phones in Africa than there are people, actually, you know.
Right.
But, you know, this 75-year-old woman, she said she went out for a caribou hunt for like a week. So she was without any technology at all for a whole week to do this caribou hunt. And she comes back and she says, I recorded all my shows and I can't wait to catch up on them. I mean, but it's like people who learn how to do things in moderation and not be consumed by watching Netflix, you know, 10 hours a day, like it's an actual job. Like I sleep 8 hours, I go to work 8 hours, and then I watch Netflix 8 hours, you know, like that's an addiction.
Yeah.
And children in those cultures, they don't have any tablets, phones, technology and things like that. They have to do things without that. And when it's appropriate, they start using computers and technology and things like that. And when a child wants a cell phone, they can only get a cell phone when they can get their first job. So when they can actually afford their own plan and their own phone, that's when they get it. So they sort of like limit it around there, but they also make a point of not having any kid-based activities. So in America, you know, you have your 4-year-old birthday party and like activities for the kids. This is what the kids are doing it, and they take them away and put them over there because this is what the kids do. Whereas in these villages, the kids do what the adults do, and they do it on the level that they do it in. So if we're doing laundry, the kids are doing the level of laundry that they're doing, and they're sorting and they're doing this and that. And if they're cooking, I mean, there's 5-year-olds in this village that can cut things on the board and, you know, prepare food only because they have been given the opportunity to do things with adults during that time period, and how adults take this major play this major role in a child's life, as opposed to their peers playing a role. Yeah. So it's I mean, I can't wait to fully read this book and
very interesting. Yeah, I share this opinion that, I mean, that the kids should be with the parents. You know, what is this 8-hour per day schooling, you know?
Actually, like, Christopher, you talked to Christopher about that? Because he's seen in Indonesia, like how they do everything. And he goes, they don't even put the child down for the first 3 years of its life.
Yeah.
It's literally on the parent, you know, it sleeps with the parent. The parent wears it. They'll put it down. And at this point, because the parent has such a strong attachment to it, the child anchors on a parent and not anchors on a peer. And there's another book called Hold On to Your Kids. It's written by Gabor Mate and Gordon Neufeld. He's a child psychologist. The other man is a doctor in Canada. And he worked in the prison system. And so he knows like how psychologically things go really wrong with people. But the whole book's title is Why Adults Matter More Than Peers, and how kids need to anchor onto the adult and not onto the child. So it's really interesting to watch how these, like the hunter-gatherer type of people actually embrace this sort of part of life, and how their children don't have anxiety and they don't have problems, and they have technology and social media and stuff like that, but it's literally how they're brought up in the environment. They don't get praised all the time either, because if you praise somebody all the time, they constantly seek validation from like some sources without, you know, other than it being them. Yes. And so I thought that was an interesting concept. You know, it's like I got praised a lot as a child and I did a lot of accomplishment, but I also could see my accomplishment on a scoreboard and so on, and I could work for that and see that myself. But if I'm constantly told like, good job, you did a great job, very nice, you did good, I'm always going to expect that somehow, and I'm going to find my worth by that. Yeah. And I think it's like the very big disservice, and that's maybe what kids these days, and where they're 35 years old and still living with their parents. You know, and I don't think that there's anything wrong with multi-generations of people living in the same home, but a 35-year-old at that point should take more care of their parents than the parent taking care of them. Yeah,
it's more like the independence thing. Yeah, like being independent, and you you can have a great relationship and live nearby or even in the same house. I mean, this in Spain, for example, was always traditional to do that, but the work was always shared since you were 12. Yeah. So yeah.
Right.
Very interesting. Yeah, I mean, at some point, maybe we can talk about these things also, because I think they're very important, and they're going to become.
I think the person to talk to in this regard, I don't have any kids, so I feel like, I'm speculating, at this point. I can only talk from the experience of what I've observed in my life and my experience as my own child. Right? Yeah, but my own experience as a child and what I can look at and say, this is the things that didn't go so great in my childhood, and this is what I had to do later in life to heal that. Mm-hmm. And if I were to do it differently, how would I do it differently? Because I think a lot of times new parents will go, well, I'm definitely not going to do what my parents did because they all screwed me up and blah, 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 all these things. And I think that's throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Yeah. I think what you need to look at is like, okay, this is what they did. This is their mentality and why they thought that this was a good idea. Because no parent goes out there and says, I'm going to really screw up this kid. Let me screw them up, I mean, nobody does that. They just do the best job they can. So you look at what they did. Don't blame them for that, because then you become this victim. But you look at it and go, here, they didn't do so great here. Because why? Well, they didn't have control of their own emotions. Well, what they did was fine. They didn't have any control of their emotions. So if I can work on my own control of my own emotion, then I would do better in that exact situation. And what was good about the situation was still good about the situation. Or this punishment, or this way of raising, or this way of teaching, or this way of whatever could have been great if only you didn't yell at me while you were doing it. Could you have maybe controlled that? And I think this method essentially teaches you how to have control of yourself.
Yes.
You have control of your breath. And when you have control of your breath, you start having control of everything. Your appetite, your sleep, your energy levels, your hormones, your reaction time, your strength. You have control over everything because you control how you are working with your breath. And yes, your breath is automatic and we breathe 30,000 times a day, but you can work on a part of your brain where the control of that sits. And you can do it. You can change that piece and recalibrate that. When you recalibrate that, you recalibrate your life. And I think that's what this is why this method is not to be underestimated. It's why it's not to be poo-pooed and think, oh, I've breathed so many times in my life, like, what is this going to make a difference? Like, I hear this all the time. I've been breathing my whole life. I'm 65 years old and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but you got deconditioned in how you're supposed to be doing it. You got off the track and now you have autoimmune disease because of it. I don't know. I just don't think that this is going to help me. I'm like, yeah, because your brain doesn't work. So you can't listen to me right now. I mean, I literally see that. I'm like, I hear this person is saying a bunch of things and I just don't even think they know what they're saying.
Yeah. Americans will tell you that. Yeah, they will tell you straight that. Yeah. Yeah.
I just don't see that that's going to make a difference. Okay, let's do these pauses and see what happens. You want to take a bet? I'm a betting kind of person.
Yes, that's what it goes until you don't do it. That's it. Yeah.
Right.
Great.
You're never too old. They're never too old. I have a 76-year-old client that has gotten off of half of his medication. His life's totally changed. And it, by no means is he perfect, but it has changed the quality of your life so much. Like, why wouldn't you continue doing this? It's great. What if you live another 15 years? You're going to live in misery, or you're going to like at least be better?
Yeah. It's an incredible work. Yeah. Great.
All right, Javier, thanks for the chat. So this is 28 weeks. And
yes.
So we'll do another one at 38 weeks or maybe 37 weeks, because here's the thing. My mom gave birth to all three of us 2 weeks early. So if I'm anything like my mom, I might actually be giving birth like when we're trying to make the next appointment in 10 weeks. So what I'll probably do is like at week 37, I'll be like, hey, let's make another chat, and we just talk about like what happened over the last like 9-10 weeks, and then I'll probably give birth and then go through like a period of like healing, and that's going to be a time of, I can't even tell you what that's going to be like. I've never done that. But I think it's important, and I'm going to be taking notes and make mental notes of things and see how that is, so that we can do like a 48 week, so a 47 week or 46 week. Well, if I gave birth like at 38 weeks, we'll do one like, 6 weeks after that or something like that, so I can talk about, be able to also tell you that, okay, the midwife discharged me, the midwife discharged the baby, these are the things that we have done, so on and so forth. We will, go from there, but this is what this whole process is like. And then maybe in 3 months after that, we'll do another thing where I could talk about, because a lot of people start experiencing postpartum depression. And I doubt that I'll have any of that, just because I'll probably start getting on the method right away. And I probably will like purge all that. I probably won't have any problems like that. And but I think the whole process of like from the beginning to end, because a lot of people are like, well, you're good right now, let's just see how you're in the second trimester. Well, you're good right now, let's see how you're in the third trimester. I mean, it's almost like people are waiting for me to feel like shit or something. So we'll see like what happens next, and we'll have a little conversation in like 9 weeks or so.
I think that's such a beautiful project, to take that whole process and document it, and once everything goes well, just to put it there for people to witness. I think it's beautiful.
Right.
I thank you for that so much. Yeah.
Right. It's great, and I think it would be nice for people to be able to hear it as a testimonial. I would love to eventually send it, like have it as a YouTube video, to be able to then send it to like different organizations to then promote this method in a way too, not just for that, but almost like as a consultant, like you're thinking about starting a family, well then let's get on this first, and we have professionals here that can like help you get on a better track for that.
So important to do it first. Before.
Yeah.
Very good.
All right. Yes.
All right, Renate.
Excellent. It's exciting stuff. And the belly will be even
so
bigger
much.
next time.
You're doing great. It's
Yeah. Yes.
Beautiful.
All right.
I thank you so much for this.
Yes, absolutely. You're very, very welcome. And I'm glad to be part of the project, and I feel honored to be part of the project. And I want it to be so successful, because I think it would be a great success for our team,
And as always, I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Learn Buteyko podcast. You can find us at www.learnbuteykoonline.net, where you can find further information about the method and how to do it with the best in the world. Thank you very much.